dreams in one basket, yet the fates chose a different pathway. When the work that you toiled didn't matter, and you couldn't get out of your way. When the life that you followed misled you, and that muse that you chased lay sleep, these blues are here to sustain you. These blues cast off the pain. Often life has a way of misguiding the hopes that you hold on so deep, and the truth that you end up hiding is the darkness brought on by your fears. When the die that was rolled is accepted, and you realize that nothing's in vain, these blues are here to sustain you. These blues are here to sustain you. These blues are here to sustain you.
The name of that song is titled Nothing's in Vain, Steve Beastie's song. It was written and recorded by my special guest today, Gina Coleman with Misty Blues, who are based in Western Massachusetts. I received the latest 2 albums from their label, which is called Guitar One Records. Luke W. was kind enough to send that to me. I love them. I knew then that I had to have Gina on my show. Gina, welcome to the Friday Afternoon Music Mix.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I've been playing music from both of your albums that came out in 2024. One of them is called Silver Lining. That came out earlier in the year. The second album, which just came out, is called Too Old for Games, a tribute to Odetta. You started the band, 25 years ago?
Yes, 25 years ago.
You're getting some great reviews, a lot of play on stations such as Sirius XM. Tell me about how you started.
I first started in I would call it an acoustic funk. It was a hodgepodge. It was called Cold Connection. We played throughout the 90s. Some of the members started to move on to other places, so I was kind of piecing things together with musicians, and then I was afforded this incredible opportunity to take a role in the Williamstown Theater Festival production of A Raisin in the Sun. And that was in Williamstown, Massachusetts. They cast me as a gospel singer. They wanted someone to traverse this fire escape that was erected across the top of the main stage of the theater while there were act changes so that I would divert the attention from of the moving of the scenery for the audience, and I would sing these gospel tunes. And at the end of the run of that show, the lead actor, Ruben Santiago Hudson, pulled me aside. He's like, "You've got to stop that folk funk nonsense." Like, he called it nonsense. And he's like, "Your voice is perfectly suited for the blues." And so he gave me this CD collection called Men Are Like Streetcars. I think it's like 46 tracks of all female blues artists from like 1928 to 1969. I consumed it in short order, and it was transformative. I had heard many of those tunes individually, but as a collection, it gave me great insight. And so I heeded his advice, and I went back to the remaining members of Coal Connection. I said, "Do you want to change things up? You want to become a blues band?" And the guys were like, "Yeah, we love the blues." Off the top of my head, I said, "Well, let's call ourselves Misty Blues." And that's it. So we're actually not technically the Misty Blues band, but there's a skydiving, all-women skydiving team that's been around for 40 years named Misty Blues. And so they took all the domain names and all the social media names. And so we had to assume Misty Blues band for those purposes.
The album that came out earlier this year, Silver Lining, is just fantastic. Let's do a second song. It's called Blues Never Ends.
From a ship's dock to a shared crop, had to work long, so they sang strong. Hear me now, not a falsehood. Where my folks stood, feel like an outcast. Won't let them typecast. No, my blues never ends. 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 Got in the street, bro, on the way to the juke joint. Well, that's a moot point. Hear me now, I'm not a stone's throw. But my true flow and that brass ring just makes my heart sing. No, my blues never end. 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 Never ends, never ends.
I'd like to go back to that production you did in Williamstown. I understand that you actually rubbed shoulders with some pretty well-known actors and actresses.
Yes, well, as I mentioned, the lead actor is Ruben Santiago Hudson. He's an amazing theatrical actor, and he's also been on many major motion pictures and television. Some of the other actors were Kimberly Elise. Gloria Foster was the mother. Gloria Foster, as many people would recognize her, is the Oracle from The Matrix, the one with the cookies. You know? There was some other actress by the name of Viola Davis.
Obscure.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of her. Yeah, it was Viola Davis before Viola Davis. She's wonderful. Actually, here's a funny story. She bet me $10 that the production wouldn't get a standing ovation every performance. And it did. And I never saw that $10. So I think with interest, I'm sitting very well.
You had a second album that came out this year. We're going to be playing a couple cuts from that one as well, called Too Old for Games, a tribute to Odetta. Tell me a little bit about that title.
Well, I had the great fortune of meeting Odetta. I believe it was 1994. The manager for Coal Connection didn't book me for a particular night on a Saturday. And she said, well, I have guest tickets to see Arlo Guthrie at the Bottom Line in New York City. Would you like to, join me? I'm like, sure, that would be fun. I've always wanted to go to the Bottom Line. It no longer exists now. Iconic New York City club. So we went and we were seated at this grand round table. It had a reserve placard on it. And we sat down and, the table started to fill up. And I glanced over at the door and I saw this striking figure and her escort. And I was fixated on this woman. I'm watching her and the attendant bring her through the club. And they brought her right next to me, sat her in the seat to the right of me. And I'm just sitting there like puzzled. I couldn't piece together who this person was, but I knew she was somebody. Shortly afterwards, the woman across the table from me said, oh, why don't we go around the table and do introductions? And she pointed at me. She's like, you start, honey. So I said my name and we went around the table. It was an Arlo Guthrie show and it was a reserved table. I'm sure there were other extremely notable people at that table, but I couldn't hear anything until I heard who was seated to the right of me. So it came all the way around. This woman to the right of me says, hello, I'm Odetta. And I nearly fell out of my chair. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe who I'm seated next to. It was just like the thrill of my life. But before the start of the show, another patron from the club rushed up to the table to Odetta and said, do you remember me? Do you remember me? Odetta kind of leans back, because this woman is in very close proximity. She leans back and turns to her and says, child, I'm too old for games. Tell me who you are. So this album is actually the second tribute album we put out to Odetta. The first one came out last year. The album was Tell Me Who You Are. So this album had to be I'm Too Old for Games.
We must do a song from that album.
Yeah, right.
This one is called 900 Miles.
Walking down those railroad tracks, I got tears in my eyes, trying to read a letter from my home. If this train runs me right, I'll be home by tomorrow night, 'cause there's 900 That train I ride on is 100 coaches long, and I hear that whistle blow. If that train runs me right, I'll be home by tomorrow night, 'cause I'm 900 miles from my home. Well, I'd warn you my watch, warn you my chain, warn you my gold and diamond ring. In that train I ride on is 100 coaches long, 'cause I'm 900 miles from my home. Lord, I hate to hear that lonesome whistle blow. Thank you. Thank you.
Your website is mistybluesband.com, facebook.com/Misty Blues Band, instagram.com/Misty Blues Band. For music, misty-blues.square.site. You can listen and purchase music there, as well as all the outlets, Amazon, Apple. I wanted to ask you about your podcast. I know that you have been doing this for a while. I listened to the most recent one, extremely interesting, well put together and produced. You do a good job on this. Tell me a little bit about it.
Thank you. Yes, it's called The Queens of the Blues with me, Gina Coleman. I just pay homage to some of the great female blues artists from, the early 1920s to present times. It's how I got my start with that Men Are Like Streetcars CD collection that was gifted to me. So in turn, giving back by letting folks know about the history of this incredible genre, because it was female artists that were the first recorded artists of the genre. Yes, there were male artists doing music, performing live, but they weren't being recorded. They weren't the first recorded artists in the genre. It's female artists. So I thought that was important. My band also has a tribute show called The Queens of the Blues, where we pay tribute to our own four queens. And our four queens are Bessie Smith, Big Mama Thornton, Coco Taylor, and Ruth Brown. Do a tribute show. It's like a 90-minute show where we do songs from their catalog. And then I tell stories about these women's lives and educate audiences on how they got started and where they went and all their accolades and achievements. It's a great show. Yeah, I never get tired of doing that show.
By the way, there are 100 episodes on your website.
Pretty much anywhere you see your podcast. Yeah.
Oh, great. Men Are Like Streetcars. What a great name for that box set.
I believe the song is by Rosetta Howard. There's a song, Men Are Like Streetcars. And really, Misty Blues started out about 2 months after the end of that theatrical run. So we didn't have a lot of time to build up a song repertoire other than that collection. So we really started out as female blues cover band. And so we did primarily songs almost exclusively from that collection until, we had enough time to start to pick and choose other artists, including male artists, and then start writing our own music. And now, we've put out 16 up to this year. Yeah.
You have recorded with some very well-known blues artists, not only the female artists that you've been talking about, but also Joe Louis Walker, the Neville Brothers, Eric Gale.
Cat Riggins.
I like Cat Riggin, dude.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't?
You have a gig coming up at September the 4th at Portavia in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. They can look at your entire schedule under shows at mistybluesband.com. Access to the podcast is also there. 2 latest albums are Silver Lining, which came out earlier this year. Then the most recent is called I'm Too Old for Games, a live tribute to Odetta. Gina, thank you so very much for being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and get to talk with you. And
the pleasure was all mine.
Let's go out with Hold On.
Silas locked in jail, didn't have no one to get their bail. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. Martha moaned. Gabriel stood up and blew his horn. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. If I could stand on the rock, I could stand on the rock. Keep your hand nights in jail, didn't have no one to get their bail. Keep your hand on the plow and roll